what's going on, guys? It's J-Mass, and I'm back again with another dope New England adventure. And yet again, we have another cloudy, overcast, and rainy weekend while I'm filming a video this summer. I just can't catch a break, but what are you gonna do? You know, it's been like this all summer long. But I can't complain, because we have a wicked, exciting video for you today. We have a great exploration coming up, and I gotta say, it took a lot to get to this point. I'm actually on an island right now. More specifically, I'm on Cushing Island, which is an island located in the Casco Bay of Maine. Now, interestingly, Cushing Island is owned by the city of Portland, Maine, the largest city in the state. So I'm actually in the city limits of Portland, Maine right now. Now, I've filmed at many islands in the Casco Bay before, Peaks Island, for example, Fort Gorges as well, but Cushing Island is an interesting case because this island is completely privately owned. So I just want to say to start off, normally you cannot come here. You're not allowed to come here unless you have a house on the island, but I was actually given explicit permission to come and explore today's abandoned site here on Cushing Island. So I just want to say thank you so much to the person who invited me to come here. I truly appreciate it. I'm so glad I was given this opportunity. And I also want to give a special thank you, an immense thank you, I should say, to the citizens here on Cushing Island. They have great hospitality, very friendly people. I've actually spoken to quite a few of them before filming. So again, thank you to all the people who live here on Cushing Island. Thank you to the person who gave me permission to be here. I'm really excited. But I am just saying this as a warning to people watching this. Do not come to this island unless you have explicit permission. This abandoned site that I'm going to be checking out is typically privately owned and as a result off limits unless you are given permission like me. But that means I'm very excited to check this spot out because we have all day to explore an abandoned fort, more specifically known as Fort Levett. Construction on Fort Levett began in 1898 by the U.S. Army during the Endicott Period, a period during the Spanish-American War when the U.S. government was funding and constructing coastal defenses all across the United States. Now, Fort Levett was actually part of a vast network of coastal defenses scattered across the Casco Bay here in Maine. In fact, it was part of the harbor defenses of Portland, with the primary objective being protecting the city of Portland, a very crucial maritime port here in New England. Now, Fort Levett operated as a military fort for several decades throughout several wars. Of course, the Spanish-American War, but also World War I and World War II. And shortly after World War II ended, all of the artillery in Fort Levett was scrapped, and in 1948, the fort was officially sold and abandoned. Now, ever since then, Cushing Island has developed into a seasonal residential island that's entirely privately owned. In fact, in 1957, the residents of Cushing Island actually purchased Fort Levett. Today, Fort Levett is entirely abandoned, and we're going to explore every single structure and building that's still left behind, which I'm really excited to check out. So as always, guys, my name is J-Mass. If you love urban exploration, checking out abandoned sites, traveling New England and beyond, I'm always doing that on the channel, so feel free to subscribe to the channel. Major shout out to all my channel members. You can see them all right here. You guys are awesome, and I'd love it if you too, viewer of the channel, would consider becoming a member. You'd be supporting me and the channel directly, and I truly appreciate it. Or you can follow me on Instagram at JMassOfficial. That's at JMassOfficial. But we're going to get started and explore abandoned Fort Levett here on Cushing Island in the middle of the Casco Bay in Portland, Maine. A fort that normally you're not allowed to go to, but I was given explicit permission to come and explore, and I'm just really excited to bring you guys along with me. We have a lot of ground to cover today, so let's get started, and of course, I'll get into more detail with the history. All right, without further ado, let's get started and explore the many abandoned structures and buildings of Fort Levett here on Cushing Island in the middle of the Casco Bay of Maine. And I am really excited to get started and explore these many abandoned buildings. You know, I gotta say, in comparison to the other abandoned forts and batteries I've covered on the channel, this one has a significant lack of graffiti, especially in comparison to those ones. I think part of that is due to the fact that Cushing Island is a little more difficult to get to, a lot more exclusive. And of course, since it is privately owned, you know, urban explorers aren't really able to get here. So it's kind of nice to be able to explore a historic coastal New England fort with little to no graffiti. Really excited to get started and check this one out. So why don't we peek into one of these rooms, peer around inside this battery, and as we do that, I will get into the history or at least start getting into the early history of Fort Levett. So as I mentioned, Fort Levett began construction in 1898, although I will say it was first conceived of as far back as 1885. But construction began in 1898 during the Endicott Period, which was during the Spanish-American War, when the US government was assessing its coastal and harbor defenses, realizing that they weren't up to shape, and began funding and constructing new ones, which of course Fort Levett was one of many, and especially one of many here in the Portland Harbor. I mean, if you guys know anything about Portland Harbor, you know that there are many, many old forts in this area, many of which do date back to the Endicott period. Now, Fort Levett, if you're wondering, is actually named after historic English explorer Christopher Levett, whom I believe was actually the first European settler in Portland, Maine, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, check this out. No graffiti so far. Completely untouched abandoned fort. This is fascinating. Pretty rare to find and pretty rare for me to cover here on the channel. So if you're wondering, there are actually 7 total batteries that were, at least during its lifespan, part of Fort Levett. We're in one of the batteries right now, Battery Bowdoin. So Battery Bowdoin is one of 7 batteries that existed throughout Fort Levett's history. I can't recall off the top of my head which is the biggest of all the batteries, but I think Battery Bowdoin has to be up there because this battery is pretty large. So we are starting off strong with one of the largest batteries on the property. Now, one thing I always forget off the top of my head, but I'll include in text below if you want to see, is the artillery that each battery had. So if you want to see below, I will be showing you guys the artillery that Battery Bowdoin had, because every battery had its own armaments, guns, cannons, to basically use to defend the city of Portland and of course all the nearby communities. Look at this machine, or I don't know what it is, some piece of furniture or machinery, completely made out of steel, but of course it's very rusted. Of course, considering that this place was abandoned officially in 1948, you can definitely tell that time has taken its toll. This place is definitely suffering quite a bit of decay and deterioration, but decently preserved, especially compared to other abandoned forts I've seen. Wow, look at this. Look at all this wrecked, decayed wood. There's also a lot of calcium and lime deposits as well, you'll notice. All of these, what is it, stalactites? I always forget the difference between stalactites and stalagmites, but all those calcium and lime deposits dripping down. Probably from the mortar between the bricks, which, by the way, you can see a lot of these rooms are made of brick and mortar, but you also have concrete. In fact, I believe when you're walking outside, most of the structures are made of concrete. All right, let's peer down here. Another pretty large room. This is fascinating, I gotta say. Yeah, Battery Bowdoin, interesting stuff, and an interesting start to the trip. Check this out right here, guys. Gotta be careful when you're walking around. There's all these little trap doors in the middle of the trail. Some small little structure right here. I'm not sure what this is, but I do want to take a peek. Almost looks like a utility shed of sorts. By the way, I should probably mention, there are so many abandoned buildings and structures that were once part of Fort Levett that are now left behind. Like, it is crazy the amount that's left behind. So, fair warning, I do think this is going to be a very long video. So I hope you guys like long videos because I'm going to try to cover everything while I'm here. These are definitely not old though. Check these out. All of these old chairs. I'm saying old. These are probably relatively new, but look at all these chairs. This just shows to me that sometimes people will come and just chill inside this little abandoned structure. I mean, that's kind of cool. Yeah, this is a nice place to hang out, have some drinks, have some food, just hang out. Why not? I will say, as I've been filming, I have come across some island residents walking around and exploring the fort. So I'm sure if you live here seasonally on Cushing Island, probably a fun time just walking around exploring the many batteries. All right, let's peek in here inside this room. There's an abandoned buoy right there. But yeah, another large room right here, completely made of concrete. No brick in this one, and a huge support beam. I will say a lot of the little rooms, I probably don't know exactly what they were used for. So if anyone in the comments knows, please feel free to enlighten me. A lot of these rooms, I'm probably not going to know their exact purpose or functionality, but I would appreciate any and all tips you can give me or information. You'll also probably notice my voice is echoing quite a bit as I'm talking. Of course, we're inside these very hollow battery rooms, so it's gonna be a lot of echoing. Don't worry, I'll say something funny at some point. I also wanna mention too, like, look at this architecture. All the steel support beams and columns holding up the awning right here. You have the concrete walls, very thick concrete walls. Again, these are coastal defenses. Their primary objective was to defend. So of course you had to have strong structural integrity, strong materials. I'm sure at least when these were built, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, it was very impressive. All right, let's take a peek in here through these two metal doors. Wow, this place is like a maze. So cool. I don't know the answer to this, but if anyone knows in the comments, it almost looks like there's sort of a track on the ceiling. Check that out, like a steel track. I almost wonder if there was some sort of machinery that followed this track. I don't know what it would be, but please let me know if I'm correct in that assessment, or maybe it's just structural support beams, I'm not really sure. Oh, and a huge wooden door. By the way, we are still inside Battery Bowdoin right now. Battery Bowdoin, definitely one of the largest batteries. There is also a way to get up onto the top of the battery, which we'll do shortly after. I just want to check out the ground level first. So we will go to the top very soon. Trust me, we have a lot to see today. And I don't know when I'll be back to Cushing Island, so I definitely want to see everything while I'm here. Wow, another structure, look at this. This is amazing. Fascinating piece of history. Anyone know what this is? I'm genuinely not sure. By the way, I do want to give a special shout out to a longtime viewer of the channel who actually helped me come here to Cushing Island to explore and film Fort Levett, and that of course is Julian Malcolm. A lot of you guys might recognize Julian Malcolm as one of my many frequent commenters. He's almost always commenting on my videos. He's an OG. He's been with me since 2023. And shout out to Julian Malcolm for getting me permission to explore Fort Levett, really cool guy. So I do want to give a special shout out to Julian Malcolm for that. He was actually going to join me originally, although unfortunately he couldn't make it. But again, I do want to shout him out for allowing me to come here to Fort Levett. Wow, this place just goes on and on. Let's peek inside this room right here. Maybe we can go in from this way, actually. Let's peek in here. I did mention earlier, by the way, I guess you can go in there, but it's very narrow, very damp, and completely covered. Look at all that calcium. That's all like calcium deposits. Crazy. But yeah, all right, let's head out here and then I'll continue what I was gonna say. So as I mentioned earlier in the introduction, Fort Levett was once part of the harbor defenses of Portland, which were several coastal defenses in the Casco Bay or Portland Harbor that were basically built to defend the very important maritime port of Portland. Wow, I'm like stepping through deep water right now. Oh, look at this. Huge wooden structure. I've been seeing a lot of these wooden structures. I don't know if it was like shelving or maybe even like beds, for barracks. Probably shelving. Probably my guess. All right, let's head back out here. But yeah, as I mentioned, Fort Levett was part of the harbor defenses of Portland. There were many forts at that time that existed in that network, and I have actually filmed at a few of them. Fort Gorges, for example, is one I filmed at last summer. Fort Gorges was part of that. Of course, you had Battery Steel on nearby Peaks Island, another abandoned fort that I filmed. Fort Williams, not too far away. Fort Williams is actually on the mainland, more specifically in Cape Elizabeth, Maine. One I haven't been to before, but I'd like to someday. I think it is also private, is I believe Fort Scammell, which is nearby. So there are quite a few abandoned forts in the Casco Bay. all at one time part of the harbor defenses of Portland, with the objective of defending Portland from any attacks or invasions. Especially during World War II, you have to consider Germany was using U-boats. U-boats were very hard to detect, and there were a couple instances of U-boats being detected in the waters of New England, so it wasn't that far-fetched of a concern. If I'm not mistaken, there actually was a U-boat detected off the coast of Maine at one point during the war. So very real concerns that they had at the time. I know I keep mentioning this, but it's crazy the amount of calcium and lime deposits that are here. Look at this stalagmite or stalactite. Someone please correct me which one it is. But look at that, there's so many, all dripping down as well. And again, the lack of graffiti here is just amazing. I gotta say, I love it. It's so fun. It's so historically enriching, being able to explore an abandoned fort without obscene and disgusting scribbling everywhere. Oh, another one of these structures. Anyone know what this is? Julian Malcolm, you know what this is? Pretty cool stuff. I do wish I knew more about the machinery in some of these places. Fascinating. As you walk around these halls, it kind of makes you think, what it must have been like being stationed here, whether it was during the Spanish-American War, or during World War I, or even World War II. Imagine being a soldier here, stationed during wartime. I mean, it's pretty easy for us with hindsight being 2020, of course, to know that, nothing ever happened to coastal New England during those wars. We were safe, but they didn't know that at the time. Anything could have happened. So they were putting their lives at risk to defend these forts, to defend us. So, got to give major props to them for that. All right, guys, I think we've pretty much seen everything there is to see inside Battery Bowdoin. So why don't we head on top and see what's going on up above? Maybe there's some good views. Not sure, it's probably mostly covered in brush and vegetation. Yeah, it is. Bushes and trees and brush and vines everywhere, but you can see some remnants. Like right here, for example, this is where one of the artillery guns were held. Probably some sort of gun mount right here. Again, I don't remember the exact guns that were used at each battery, but I'll include once again below if you want to see. This is where one of the guns were held right here. And yeah, this is the top. You can definitely see a lot of the structural decay here. You can see the concrete is truly crumbling. And I do have to be careful as I walk around, for safety, of course. Let's peek over here under this little awning. This might be connected to that machine we saw down below. Remember that machine? I said I didn't know what it was. Well, there's a piece of it right here. Not entirely sure what it is, but looks like it was part of it. Pretty cool. One thing I will also mention as well, as I said earlier, I was speaking to some of the residents of Cushing Island as I was coming in. By the way, to get here, I actually had to take a private boat from a wharf in Portland. It was a fun ride. But as I was on the boat and as I entered the island, I was talking to some of the residents. And apparently this island is overrun with wild turkeys. Now I know a lot of you people who are from New England watching this are gonna say, yeah, we all are. Don't get me wrong, I know there's turkeys everywhere in New England nowadays, but apparently this island has tons of turkeys and a lot of them have baby chicks right now. And I actually had firsthand experience with it earlier. As I was getting ready to record, a mother turkey with some chicks walked by me and I had to rush past so she wouldn't get upset with me. So there are turkeys everywhere on this island. There's also other stuff like poison ivy you gotta be careful of, but it's definitely not in the best shape, but still cool nonetheless. Look at this. Very rusty case of some sort, not sure. Another gun mount right here. Fascinating to see how big these gun mounts were. I mean, you have to consider these artillery mounts were huge. The guns were huge. You needed a lot of firepower if you were gonna stand any chance against an enemy, whether it was from the air above, an air attack, or whether it was a nearby U-boat or a Navy or anything, again, they didn't know what to expect. Another one of these machines again, really not sure what these were. But yeah, I think this is about it for Battery Boat, and I think we've pretty much seen all there is of this battery, so we will be moving on to the next one. As I said, there were once 7 batteries in Fort Levett, so quite a few batteries, and those are just the batteries. I mean, there were other structures, fire towers, wireless telecommunications buildings. There was a barracks here as well, although that burned down in the 1970s, sadly. There was also a hotel at one point, a hospital. I mean, there were so many different structures here at Fort Levett, which sadly a lot of them we can't get to, and hopefully for the sake of time we can, but we'll have to see. But yeah, that's about it for Battery Bowdoin, one of the biggest ones here, and I absolutely loved exploring it. All right, guys, I'm pretty excited because yet again, we have another massive set of batteries to check out. We actually have 2 side-by-side batteries. This one right here, which is Battery Kendrick, and then way down there, Battery Ferguson. It almost seems like we're in some sort of little canyon or gorge right now. We're in some sort of ravine, and this is where the entrances to these interior batteries are. Battery Kendrick, Battery Ferguson, another massive set of batteries to check out. I'm pretty excited to see what this one has going on. So we're gonna start with Battery Kendrick first, which, by the way, for my fellow rap fans out there, is not named after Kendrick Lamar. I know, shocking. You would think it would be named after Kendrick Lamar, but it's not. No. All right, let's look around and see what this Battery Kendrick has going on. Super excited, though. I'm really loving this exploration so far. Really loving Fort Levett. I gotta say, of all the abandoned forts I've explored thus far, I mean, Fort Levett is by far one of the most intact. There's like no graffiti, no serious vandalism here. Everything is pretty well preserved and maintained. But I also feel like there's a lot to see here. I mean, again, it is sprawling. This right here is where that machine we saw earlier would have been. I don't see it here. It looks like it was scrapped, but that machine we saw would have been here. By the way, I do want to mention, in between filming these clips, you know, when I left Battery Bowdoin and was heading over here, I actually sent Julian Malcolm a text, and he informed me that that machine we saw earlier was an ammo machine. So that was used for ammo. So I apologize for not knowing that earlier, but that was used for ammo. All right, actually, let's head out this way. Head outside of Battery Kendrick, keep on going. This is what it looks like from this angle, by the way. Pretty cool. Very, very similar to Battery Bowdoin. They're almost, frankly, indistinguishable, but still cool nonetheless. Yeah, see, it even has one of those little buildings over there. That one. Cool. Another thing I want to mention, by the way, is I'm not entirely sure where Battery Kendrick starts and Battery Ferguson stop. Okay, let me rephrase that. I'm not sure where Battery Kendrick stops and Battery Ferguson starts. That's what I meant to say. They're so close to each other, like they're basically side by side. It almost looks like they're linked. They almost seem to be the exact size of Battery Bowdoin, but Battery Bowdoin was one battery. Battery Ferguson and Battery Kendrick are 2 distinct batteries, but they're side by side. So again, I don't know when one stops and the other starts. Try to keep an eye on that while I'm walking around. Ooh, look at this. Got to be careful while you're walking around so you don't fall in a trap. I know we saw one earlier in the trail. So I'm gonna sneak by. If any of you watching this video ever do get permission to come to Fort Levett and make it out here, please be careful. It is super dangerous as you walk around here. There's a lot of structural decay and degradation. There's also a lot of, you know, little, best I can say is traps like that you could fall in. And then of course, as I mentioned earlier, there's stuff like poison ivy and angry turkeys. So definitely be careful while you're exploring Fort Levett. Again, if you ever get the chance to get out here. Wow, pretty cool. Yeah, very similar to Battery Bowdoin. They're almost like identical, I gotta say. Oh, more of these wooden shelving units. More right over there. And once again, the ammo machine has been scrapped. That's interesting that Battery Bowdoin had them, but not Battery Kendrick and or Ferguson. That's very interesting. So guys, as we wander around a bit more, I will begin to delve into the more modern history of Fort Levett. So we already discussed the early history, you know, beginning in 1898 during the Spanish-American War. But I do want to start delving into the World Wars, specifically World War I and World War II. So while we explore a little bit, I'll do just that. By the way, guys, this right here is Battery Ferguson. Over there was Battery Kendrick that we just explored. So we will get to Battery Ferguson very shortly. I do just want to check out this little building right here, which again, not entirely sure what it was used for, probably a utility shed of some sorts. But yeah, as we do that, I will start delving into the World War I history of Fort Levett, because it is pretty interesting. So if you guys remember from history class, the United States officially joined World War I in 1917. So it was 1917 that we joined the war. And it was also in 1917 when Fort Levett was heavily manned by many companies of the coastal defenses of Portland. By the way, I should have mentioned this earlier. Although I've been calling it the Harbor Defenses of Portland, it was originally known as the Coast Defenses of Portland. And the companies of the Coast Defenses of Portland heavily manned this fort during America's involvement in World War I in 1917. But yeah, this is this little room, by the way. Pretty cool. I just got to duck underneath all these sticks and twigs. But yeah, as it was manned, the other thing that the U.S. Army was trying to do was modernize this fort. So Fort Levett, again, was a Endicott period fort, but World War I was a completely different era in warfare. And the U.S. government knew that. So around 1915, they were assessing the possibility of constructing a brand new battery for Fort Levett. Now, it didn't end up being built until after World War I had ended in 1920. But in 1920, Battery Foote was constructed. So at that point, Battery Foote was one of the newest batteries built on Fort Levett. Again, it was supposed to be built just in time for World War I, but obviously it was built after. So a little late on that, but Battery Foote was built around the time that World War I was raging. America joined, and then, shortly after it ended, after the armistice. Yeah, we are in Battery Ferguson right now, by the way. So yeah, that's Fort Levett's involvement during World War I. Actually quite heavily manned during America's engagement in the war. Another interesting thing to note is that the guns that were actually placed on Battery Kendrick were removed and dismounted during World War I. You have to consider that artillery was very, very valuable during the war. The United States needed all that they could get, whether it was for themselves or their European allies. So the guns that were on Battery Kendrick were actually dismounted. Now, I can't recall if they were ever shipped over to Europe or if they were just removed and placed elsewhere, but we just explored Battery Kendrick, so I did want to mention that. Wow, look at all these bricks everywhere. Bricks everywhere. It is, oh yeah, look at that. It actually came from the ceiling. Jeez. Bit of a collapse on the ceiling right here. You can even see one of the support beams is kind of hanging down. So there is definitely some structural decay that is noticeable in these batteries. Again, we're in Battery Ferguson right now. Jeez. This is kind of an offhand comment I want to make, but I've always kind of considered, like, it is interesting how short of a time the United States spent in World War I. I mean, a lot of countries like Britain, France, Germany, Austria, Hungary, they were engaged in World War I for years before the United States joined in 1917. So the US really was not in the war for that long. Slightly over a year, I think. So it's just pretty interesting to consider that. Because I feel like we always consider World War I with the same magnitude as we do World War II, from a US perspective, that is. I mean, obviously they were both horrible, but I'm saying, like, in terms of US engagement, we were in World War I far less than we were in World War II. Just something interesting to think about. Wow, okay, this room is definitely rough. I do remember Julian telling me to be careful in Battery Ferguson, and now I know why. This place is not in great shape. Almost looks like some of this stuff melted, so it makes me wonder if there was a fire in here. I don't know if there was, but I see a lot of degradation. It actually looks like the brick roof or the brick ceiling completely collapsed here. And yet another machine. Not sure if that's an ammo machine, but could be. All right, let's safely navigate out of this maze of chaos and destruction. Oh, I don't think we're getting out of there. Okay, let's go over here. I really quickly just want to show you one more view outside, and then we're going to head up on top of Ferguson and Kendrick. But I did just want to show you one more view from out here, because I just think it's cool to see. By the way, blue skies, yippee! It was really overcast and cloudy and slightly rainy when I first got here, so it is nice to see the weather opening up once again. Yeah, this is the outside of the two batteries. Look at this. I love this archway right here. Beautiful arch. All right, guys, let's head up on top. Okay, I cannot believe I forgot to mention this, but check this out. Abandoned battery bathroom. This is the toilet that soldiers were using when these batteries were being stationed with, different companies and different military engagements. That's crazy. There's the toilet right there. Wow, doesn't really look comfortable, I gotta be honest. Does not look like a comfortable toilet. But I'm sure comfort was not the top of their concerns with these batteries, to be fair. Again, it was defense. All right, guys, we are gonna head up on top now. So why don't you follow me as we make our way over to the stairs and see what's awaiting us at the very top of Kendrick and Ferguson, which I assume is probably quite similar to Battery Bowdoin. Oh, the other thing I want to mention, you probably heard plane noises throughout the video. Yeah, hear that? There are going to be planes flying overhead throughout the entire video. In fact, the introduction I shot earlier took me numerous tries because of the amount of planes flying overhead. You have to consider we are near the Portland airport. Pretty sure they call it the Portland Jetport. But we are near the airport, so got to be cautious of that. All of the planes flying overhead. It's going to be kind of loud, so I just want to warn you. Here we go, one of the artillery mounts right here. Once again, I will include below what guns were used here at Battery Ferguson, and then once we get to Kendrick, I'll show you the guns that were used at Kendrick. But this is Battery Ferguson, and these were the guns that were used here. Pretty interesting. Let's peek up here a bit. I hear another plane coming. These planes are endless. Look at that. They just keep on coming. Yeah, very, very similar to Battery Bowdoin, I gotta say. Definitely a lot of overgrowth, though. Yeah, see, here's part of that machine we saw earlier, which Julian told me was an ammo machine, which does make sense now that I think about it. Here's that little building we saw down there, what I think is probably a utility shed or a powerhouse, or maybe even a telecommunications building. Not really sure, but there's that thing. Now this is cool because Bowdoin did not have this. Let me peek over here for you guys, give you a better view. Look at this rickety old steel and wood bridge. Obviously I'm not going to be crossing this thing. I mean, look at those planks of wood. One step and I'm falling down. But that is cool. There's a bridge connecting the trails over here to Battery Ferguson. Super cool to see. Wow. Wish I could cross it, but I just don't feel safe or comfortable doing that. Got to go through all these plants here. Again, very dense vegetation and foliage. To be fair, it is late June as I'm filming this, so it's almost peak summer season. And then here we go, another gun mount. I think we're still on Battery Ferguson, or we could be heading into Battery Kendrick. They're very similar, though. Speaking of which, let's head over here and check out Battery Kendrick, which I know for a fact this is Battery Kendrick over here. Or maybe this is Battery Kendrick. That's what I'm saying. It's hard to tell because Kendrick and Ferguson are basically linked. It's strange that Bowdoin is its own battery, but then Kendrick and Ferguson are almost sharing a battery. I wonder why. Okay, well, I guess we are in Battery Kendrick, so I will include below the guns that were used here at Battery Kendrick. Because I believe Kendrick and Ferguson had their own separate guns that were used, and this, of course, is the artillery mount where Kendrick's guns were held. Very fascinating to see. And again, imagine the manpower that was required to utilize these guns. I would not want to be on the wrong side of that artillery, I'll tell you that. All right, guys, that was pretty cool. We're going to head back down below and get to the next spot. All right, guys, I did a bit of walking and I've come across our next battery that we're going to be exploring. This right here is Battery Daniels. It's a bit of a ways away from Kendrick and Ferguson, but I wanted to start showing it off here because as you guys can see, compared to the other batteries we've explored so far, This one is incredibly overgrown. I mean, man, look at all this vegetation. This one is not as open and easy to access as the others were. Yeah, actually, I can show you right here. Look at how overgrown this one is. So this one's going to be a little trickier to explore. So I'm going to get down there very shortly, show you as much of Daniels as I can, but I did just want to show it off because this one is much more overgrown with thick vegetation compared to the others. All right, guys, we're down below at the base of Battery Daniels right now, and to give you an idea of how overgrown this area is, I have to wade through all of these thick plants. So I really hope that Cushing Island is not known for ticks because, yeah, look at this. This is like tick central right here. Anyways, we're gonna wade over here and see if we can get inside Battery Daniels, see what's going on. By the way, fun fact, as I was making my way over here, I was actually held hostage by a very violent mother turkey. There was a mother turkey with like 7 or 8 of her chicks, guarding them as she should, but I had to cross her path to get over here. So I waited quite a bit until I was in the clear to go around her. So again, the turkeys here are no joke. One of the islanders I talked to earlier said he was held hostage, most likely by the same mother turkey, just a few days ago, so gotta be careful. But anyways, yeah, we are inside Battery Daniels right now. Check this out. Battery Daniels appears to be much smaller than the other batteries we explored. Oh, gotta be careful of that. Might be hard to tell, but huge spider web right there. But anyways, Battery Daniels appears to be much smaller than Bowdoin, Ferguson, or Kendrick. So I don't think we'll be spending as much time here anyways. This one doesn't appear to be as large, but still worth checking out nonetheless. Let's see if we can peek in here. Man, it's so overgrown. Feels like I'm wading through a jungle. I've literally been to the Amazon rainforest before and it wasn't this bad. All right, let's peek in here. Another little room, nothing too crazy. Again, Battery Daniels does appear to be one of the smallest batteries on the site. Interesting. I will try to get up on top of Daniels as well, although, again, considering its size and how overgrown it is, not really sure how successful that will be. All right, let's peek in here. Not too much in here, although we do have some flimsy wooden boards left behind. And a lot of random rusted metal. Oh, this was a staircase, that's what that was. So that's how you used to get up on top of Battery Daniels. And that's really it. I don't really see anything else over here, so why don't I see if I could find a way to get on top. All right, guys, so I'm currently standing on top of Battery Daniels right now, and it's probably hard to even tell that because Battery Daniels is insanely overgrown. It's gonna be tough for me to even try to browse and show you on top much more detailed, but I will tell you really quick, down there, just right down there, that's where the gun mounts are, the artillery. So I will include down below again what type of guns Battery Daniels held. But again, this is just so overgrown, it's gonna be hard for me to get back there. It was kind of tough for me to get up here to begin with. But these are the guns that Battery Daniels had. Now, one thing I do want to show you actually over here is this building. Now, this is actually not part of Battery Daniels, as I understand it. This is actually a mine observation tower. It was actually built during World War II, which I think will be a good transition for us to begin discussing World War II in comparison to Fort Levett. So I'm gonna head over to that mine observation tower shortly, but I did just want to show you that. I believe it was built in 1942. But yeah, this is really about it for Battery Daniels. Just very tough to explore this one, and it is smaller, to be fair. So I'm gonna see if we can get around, get to that mine observation tower, and then we can discuss World War II. As World War II was unfolding, Fort Levett was considered to be in very poor condition. So by 1941, just before the United States entered the war, it got a complete makeover and a massive renovation with new guns and artillery and complete renovations on many of the batteries and structures here, as well as an additional few structures constructed. And this is one of them right here, the Mine Observation Tower, built in 1942 during America's involvement in World War II. Also, interestingly, many men were stationed here during the war. It started from 124 soldiers stationed at Fort Levett to 758 by the end of the war. So crazy, 124 men to 758 men stationed here at Fort Levett. So it was truly a very active site during World War II. Now I am gonna try to see if I can get inside this structure right here. By the way, I really will show you really quickly. This is another view of Battery Daniels from up above. Again, it's kind of tough to see, but yeah, this is Battery Daniels. Yeah, it's just a complete mess of concrete ruins, to be fair. All right, let's head down here and see if we can see a bit more of this mine observation tower, which, as the name suggests, was most likely used to look for underwater mines, likely placed by German U-boats. All right, let's peek in here. Oh, nice, we can get in. So yeah, this is the inside of the mine observation tower, one of the few World War II era components of Fort Levett left behind. Most of the batteries we've been seeing so far were built in the late 1800s, early 1900s, you know, Endicott period. But this is a World War II era. Let's see if I can actually climb up one-handed. Bear with me one second. I'm gonna try to climb up this ladder and see what's on the top floor. So let's do that right now. Hop on the stump. All right. Here we go. Oh, look, there's a nice chair for us. That's perfect. Sorry, guys, I'm filming one-handed. Nice, we did it. All right, we are inside the mine observation tower, the top floor. Got a nice little chair for us right here. Of course, one of the gun mounts. So there probably was some artillery in this tower right here. Not too much over here, but then got some great views. And why don't I show you that right now? Check this out. View of the Casco Bay, the glistening Atlantic Ocean right over there. And it might be hard to see, and I will show you shortly after this clip, but way over there is Cape Elizabeth, Maine, more specifically home to the Portland Head Light, one of the most iconic lighthouses in Maine and the United States at large. So I will show you a better view of that later, but we get perfect views of Cape Elizabeth, Maine, which, by the way, was actually home to another fort, Fort Williams, which I did film 2 years ago, I believe. Pretty cool, though. Guys, check out this absolutely stunning view. I mean, words can't even describe how gorgeous this is. This is why I love coastal Maine so much. Just stellar. Just to show you some sights nearby really quickly, that right over there is Ram Island. And then that lighthouse over there is the Ram Island Ledge Light Station. Check that out. The Ram Island Ledge Light Station. You might be hearing a foghorn in the distance occasionally. That foghorn is coming from the Ram Island Ledge Light Station right over there. Although Ram Island itself doesn't seem to be inhabited. Then we take a look right over here, and as I mentioned earlier, this right over there is Cape Elizabeth, Maine, another town nearby, and of course the Portland Head Light. Might be kind of hard to see from this distance, but right over there is the Portland Head Light. I would argue the most famous lighthouse in all of the United States, located right nearby us. Again, I have filmed a video at Fort Williams, which is located right nearby if you're interested. But yeah, absolutely stunning views of the Atlantic Ocean, two great lighthouses. And speaking of World War II, yet another abandoned World War II era armament. This right here was part of another battery, which I will say this is sort of a long lost battery. Unlike the other batteries we saw, there's not really a major structure left behind. It seems like only the gun mounts are left behind. But this was part of battery AMTB 961. Now there's two of these gun mounts we're gonna check out. This is one of them right here. Just sitting here on the side of the coast, filled with algae-infested seawater. Now this was really a pain to get to. I had to kind of bushwhack through this thick foliage. I did follow a trail, but it just wasn't a well-kept trail. But I did want to show you guys battery AMTB 961 because it is a paramount part of Fort Levett's World War II history, which we were discussing, actually not too far away from the mine observation tower. So there's this gun mount here, and then there's another one over there, which I'll walk to right now. And right here is the other gun mount for battery AMTB 961, both of which were built during World War II. If I'm not mistaken, they were built in 1943. This one here, and the other one right over there, sitting alongside the rocky coastline that we just saw earlier. Kind of interesting to note that they are called Battery AMTB 961. It doesn't seem to have a nickname like the others do. You know, Bowdoin, Kendrick, Ferguson, Daniels. This one just has a numerical code, AMTB 961. Not entirely sure why. Almost seems like a World War II era thing to do, whereas the others were older. I don't know, that's my guess. But yeah, this is one of the gun mounts here. Definitely in worse condition. As you can see, a lot of the concrete has chipped away. No seawater to be found in this one, though. You can see it's all overgrown with plants and vegetation. Pretty interesting. But yep, there's this one over here, and then that one right over there. Although the rest of the battery doesn't appear to be left behind, we do still get to see this fascinating piece of World War II era history here at Fort Levett. And again, just one more view of the absolute gorgeous beauty of the coast of Cushing Island. I mean, man, look at this. Look at these crashing waves. I do have to say, I'm a little disappointed that I don't see any seals. I've always wanted to see seals on the coast of Maine, and I thought, since I'm in a very uninhabited portion of Cushing Island, you know, not many people come out to this spot, I thought there would be seals, but I do not see any. Very sad. But yeah, guys, that was Battery AMTB at 961. I'm gonna head back out into the sticks, I guess, and see if we can find our next spot. All right, guys, once again, we are back to it. We're going to be exploring one of two abandoned fire towers. Now, both of these fire towers were actually built during World War II, more specifically built during 1943. And again, this is one of two abandoned fire towers. So we're going to check out this first one right now. And I'm excited because the door is wide open, which means we can go inside and hopefully climb all the way up to the top of the fire tower. Built in 1943, so yet another World War II era structure here at Fort Levett. Super cool so far. But yeah, this is us inside of the tower, completely built out of concrete. Compared to most of the structures we've seen so far, this one is actually in pretty nice shape. Look at that, it's actually quite clean. Almost looks like it was cleaned sometime recently. Oh, there's a bit of a hatch right here. What's down here? Yeah, nothing much down there, just completely empty. Looks like a cellar hole. And then some strange fuse box right here, a lot of wires. But yeah, guys, now that we're inside this fire tower, I'm gonna climb all the way to the top. So why don't you join me as we make our way up to the very top floor of this 1943 fire tower here at Fort Levett. All right, guys. Looks like the stairs that we've been taking have now switched to a ladder. Oh wow, and the very first graffiti I've seen so far. Damn. All right, let's go up this ladder now. Wow, that was several stories, I gotta say. That was very high up. You might hear me a little out of breath right now. All right, so this isn't the very, well, it's the top floor inside. We can actually go up there as well, but first let's take a look out here. Obviously, when this thing was built, you could actually see far and wide. Right now, it's of course covered by trees. We're basically in the middle of a forest. But during World War II, that was likely not the case. And you can see one of the gun mounts right here, or some sort of machine. I don't know if it was a gun mount, but there was some machine right here. Pretty cool. Okay, let's go up here next. Start climbing up. This is a lot taller than it looks, I gotta say. Oh, there's another one of these mounts right here. And another view, okay. Is this like a double-decker view? Could this be another one? Wow, okay, let's go up here. Okay, this is the actual top floor. I see now. This is the actual top floor that we're on. So no more stairs or ladders. This is the actual very top floor of this fire tower. So I'll show you some different angles of views. A view right over there, you can see some of the other Casco Bay islands. And let's take a look out here. Absolutely gorgeous. Now we're at the treetop, so we can see the very top of the forest we're in. Super cool. And then yet again, another one of these mounts. That's sick. We're at the very top of one of the 2 abandoned fire towers. I love these abandoned fire towers. They're so much fun. I was kind of hoping there'd be roof access. I don't think there is. Probably for the better, you know, safety reasons, but still super cool. I can't believe we climbed all the way to the top of this. I want to say it was 8 stories tall. It's actually quite tall. Check this out, guys. I got another cool one for you. We have yet another abandoned battery to check out, although this one differs slightly from the other ones we've seen. Although it is primarily underground, you know, just like the others, this one has a massive artificial man-made hill surrounding it. So it looks like it's been completely covered in topsoil and earth. Now it's just a giant man-made hill, almost entirely underground. That's pretty cool. This, of course, is Battery Foote, one of the more modern batteries that I stated earlier. Now, interestingly, during my research, I found that Battery Foote was constructed shortly after World War I ended in 1920, although this is 1942. I did mention previously that around the time of America's involvement in World War II, they did a lot of renovations here at Fort Levett, so it makes me think that Battery Foote probably had some renovations done around the time of World War II, even though Battery Foote itself was initially constructed after World War I in 1920. So just explaining why it says 1942 there, but I don't know, pretty interesting nonetheless. Let's head inside of Battery Foote. And man, I gotta say, I haven't really mentioned this yet, but the mosquitoes here at Cushing Island are honestly quite bad. I've been bit by so many mosquitoes today. I'm covered in mosquito bites. As I was just filming that scene, I was getting attacked. Oh, wow. Okay, Battery Foote, I see you. This is quite large, actually, way bigger than I expected. And I see a boat over there. Huh. Why don't, you know, before we get over there, let's actually head down here. I do see another boat trailer, so I wonder if this place is used for boat storage, maybe by the island's residents, not entirely sure. But that is weird that we saw a boat and a boat trailer hitch. Huge pipe up here, check that out. But yeah, no matter what the date, Battery Foote is one of the more modern batteries left behind. Or at least one of the more modern batteries that's still relatively intact. And you can see it definitely does differ from the other ones we've seen at the beginning of the video, like Ferguson, Kendrick, Bowdoin. Check that out, looks like some sort of heater right there. A lot of utility pipes and machinery in here. I gotta say, you know what this does remind me of actually? Reminds me quite a bit of Battery Steel, which is another harbor defense of Portland. Battery Steel located on Peaks Island, which is actually not too far away from Cushing Island. I did film a video there back in 2022 if you want to see, but this reminds me quite a bit of the interior of Battery Steel, which is really cool to see. And look at all this brickwork, lots of brick in here. You might notice it is kind of misty as I'm in here. That's probably because it's very damp. It is super damp inside here, water, vapor everywhere. So I do apologize for the very misty, almost grainy video quality. Believe me, it's not intentional. I think there's just a lot of damp water vapor where I am. A lot of trash here, unfortunately. I will say, haven't seen too much trash while visiting this fort, but you know, I'm not too fond of it. Old radiator right there. Another radiator there, a lot of piping, probably another fuse box. Pretty cool to see. All right, let's continue on. All right, let's continue on down here. Wow, this place is huge. This is Battery Foote. Has to be the biggest battery on the site. I know I originally thought Battery Bowdoin was the biggest, but now that I'm here, Battery Foote has to be the biggest. This is massive. And it's like a maze. I can't even tell where I am. I have like no perception of where I actually am right now. This place is huge. It's like a labyrinth. Jeez, it just keeps on going. Check this out, guys. Wonder what this is. 2 small holes in here. Not entirely sure. I'll be honest, like, I have no bearings as to where I am right now. This place is huge and it's completely like, look at this. You have these little narrow hallways and then you have these other narrow hallways jutting off of it. That's crazy. Wow. Yeah, I have no bearings of where I am right now. I'm just kind of blindly wandering around Battery Foote, which, by the way, if you're wondering, is spelled F-O-O-T-E. So there's an E at the end. All right, let's peer down here, another massive room. Again, very damp here. It might be hard to see, but look at how damp it is. So that is why it is kind of misty in here. Not sure what these are. Some strange pieces of equipment and machinery. I don't even know where to go. I think we were originally walking down here, so maybe we'll continue on. Wow, this keeps going. This is huge. I'm a little concerned about time. I do have a ferry to catch after all, and I believe I have to leave for my ferry in roughly 2 hours, which seems like a lot of time, but there's still quite a bit I have not seen yet. Ooh, look at this. This is cool. Here's one of the bathrooms. Got the sinks right there, all the urinals back there, so clearly this was a men's room. And then all of the toilets, all of the stalls. Wow, that is fascinating. Yeah, I know. There's an inside joke. I love abandoned bathrooms, but so cool. Look at these. These are old school abandoned toilets. Probably from the 40s. If I assume they did renovate this place during World War II, these probably have to be from the 1940s. I don't think it's all the way back from the 20s. Could be. But it actually looks more modern than that. This is fascinating though. Another room in here. Yeah, what I was saying was I definitely have to be aware of the time. And I genuinely had no clue Battery Foote was this large. So I do have to be conscious of how much time I'm spending in here, because I have other structures I have to get to. Again, Fort Levett is massive. This is gonna be a huge video. I don't know what the runtime is right now, but I could see this video already being almost an hour long, if not an hour, or even over that. Check this out. Surfboard. So I do think this place was used, I think it is used as boat storage. Yeah, that's weird. There's a surfboard right here. We did see another boat down there, like a trailer hitch. And then a boat here. I don't think these boats are abandoned. Like, they must be used by the island residents. So I'm not gonna touch them or anything, but still it's weird that there's boats in an abandoned fort that was actually used during wartime. That is so strange. Yeah, I don't think these boats are abandoned. I think they're being used or stored by island residents. That's strange. And a John Deere lawnmower. Fascinating. All right, let's head down here. All right, so we finally made it out to the other entrance of Battery Foote. I will just briefly show you out here. This is the complete other side, and this right in front of us is the trail I was taking to get here. We do have quite a few other structures to check out. Hopefully there's enough time for them, but I believe some of them are right down there, so we'll do that shortly. But yeah, this is the other entrance to Battery Foote. And what the hell is that? Wow, okay, I was not expecting that. Looks like someone hung a skeleton in a lab coat on the gate to Battery Foote. That is bizarre. I have not seen anything like that here at Fort Levett so far, so that's very strange to me. That's cool though. I mean, it fits the vibe, I guess. Strange stuff. All right, let's head back in. I do see one of the gun mounts back here, so let's check that out. Yeah, wow, I don't even know what to say. Battery Foote, by far the largest fort. Easily overtakes Battery Bowdoin, which originally I think was the largest battery I've seen so far. Just peeking here really quick. I do see some sort of mount right there. Not too much in here otherwise, just another empty concrete room. Though it does have some iron doors left behind. But this right here is the actual artillery mount. Check this out. With a boat inside, okay. Battery Foote is so strange compared to the others. I feel like the other abandoned batteries and structures we've seen so far have been quite preserved, you know, historically speaking, untouched. But this one is so different. Check this out. I'm gonna show you from over here. It's Christmas lights. Someone put Christmas lights up here. Of course, you have the boat in the gun mount. And then you have a lot of random vehicles and garden and landscaping equipment here. Look at this. I mean, clearly this stuff is being used by the island. It's likely just being used, this place is likely being used as storage, let's be real. You know, not complaining, obviously. It's they can do what they want with it, but it's just interesting to see that they're using this as storage. Yeah, that's strange, huh? But I will show you also, actually, let me go back over here for a second. I know I mentioned earlier, this reminds me a lot of battery steel. And this will show you exactly what I'm talking about. If you're familiar with battery steel, you know what I'm saying. Massive concrete overhang right there. Check that out. Yeah, this definitely looks like battery steel to me. Quite similar. Also reminds me of Bowdoin State Park in Rye, New Hampshire. Very similar to that as well. But pretty cool. Yeah, pretty cool. I also will leave below what types of guns were used here at Battery Foote if you're interested. So check out below if you want to see what kinds of guns were being used here. So now that we've been to this side, I'll go back to the previous entrance we were at, check out that artillery mound, see if there's any other rooms I missed, which probably quite a few, considering how massive this hallway section was. And then I think we'll finish up Battery Foote and get to the last few structures we have, which, to be fair, quite a few. Once again, back in the dark depths of Battery Foote. I'm gonna try to speed through this section. I think a lot of the rooms are similar, but did want to show off this very strange room. Look at this. Oh, I'll have to go in there next, but yeah, look at this room. It's like completely empty concrete husk, and then there's just a weird square hole right there with a view outside. Can't really tell from this angle what it is, but very strange to say the least. And then you have this room right here, which I didn't even notice until I started filming. Wow, okay. So there were likely a lot of machines here. These look like machine mounts for different types of equipment. Not entirely sure what type of equipment would have been used, but, oh, and I see another boat down there. This is interesting. A lot of either wood or drywall, can't really tell. Might be drywall actually, but fascinating. All right, let's actually head back out this way, continue on. Again, for reference, I'm heading to the other entrance right now, the way we came in from, essentially. I just want to see what's over there at that gun mount, and then I think we'll continue on with our journey. So that's that room we were just in. Okay, you know what? My curiosity is getting the better of me. I have to see this boat. So many boats in here. Yeah, check this out, another huge boat. I mean, while I don't think these boats are abandoned, again, we are on an active island. It is kind of strange that they're being stored here during the summer, because it is late June as I'm filming this. It's not like it's winter or fall or even, you know, early spring. It is June. It's peak summer month. I don't know. It's very weird. I guess, yeah, I guess we go this way. Sorry, I'm a little disoriented. All right, let's continue on. Okay, so we're finally back where we started at. This is the original entrance we came in from. Yet another one of these empty concrete rooms. Check this out. Not too much in there, but I do just want to show it off to you guys. Yeah, this is the original boat that I saw, which I thought would be a rare sight, but clearly not. We've seen quite a few boats in this fort, or this battery, I should say. Look at all these boats. Fascinating. So like I said, this is clearly being used for storage, boat storage specifically, and surfboards. That is so interesting. And once again, another gun mount. I know I already showed what kind of guns they used here, but clearly based on the size, the artillery was quite massive. Just fell in. I want to show you guys another view of that overhang. This side seems to be a lot more wooded, but maybe if I step over here, I can show you. Check that out. Now, it's probably quite obvious, but I don't think we're going to be able to get on top of this battery. It is entirely covered in earth and topsoil. It doesn't seem like there's any trails to get up there. And again, for the sake of time, I don't think I can. I don't think we're missing much though, so I'm not going to head up top right now, but we are going to continue on with our journey. But yeah, this was Battery Foote, absolutely monolithic, by far the biggest battery I've explored. And as you saw, it's like a winding maze of halls and rooms. It's like a labyrinth in there, and it's pitch black. If you ever do come here, again, with permission, you absolutely need to bring a high quality flashlight. My flashlight is 2,000 lumens, and even then I felt like it was very dark, so yeah. Check this out, guys. We are now at the second of the two 1943 World War II era abandoned fire towers. So we already explored one earlier. This is the second one. And now that I'm looking at it, yeah, I do believe this is 8 stories tall, or at least 8 levels. So yeah, that's crazy. So once again, we are gonna head inside this and climb all the way to the top. I have a feeling it's gonna be quite similar to the previous one, if not identical. But I still wanna take a look inside, but yep, wide open, perfect. But man, that's crazy. Another abandoned fire tower. I can actually like kind of make out some paint right here. This says danger something. I can't tell what that says. All right, let's peek inside. Oh, it looks like the hatch door is closed in this one. So no way to get down there like there was in the previous. Although there is a blue trash can left behind. Interesting. And yeah, there's the fuse box. So this is pretty much identical to the previous one. Also quite clean as well. Definitely clean compared to the other things we've seen. All right, guys, you know the drill. Let's do it. Follow me as we climb up this very tall fire tower. Oh man. All right, guys, we made it. We are at the very top of this second abandoned fire tower right here. Once again, we have one of these mounts. Not sure if it was used for weapons or not. I'm sure someone can fact check me below, but that is kind of cool. Of course, all the stairs and ladders we took right down there. As you can see, a lot of birds have been up here. But the main thing I want to show you guys are the views. The views are stunning up here. Honestly, better than the other one. Let's take a peek. So this right here is the island itself, Cushing Island. You can see how heavily forested it is. And for reference, right down there, right over there is Battery Foote. So Battery Foote right over here. Pretty cool. Take a peek over here. You can just barely make out Portland Headlight all the way over at Cape Elizabeth. I know I've mentioned that quite a few times already, but that right over there is Portland Headlight. Absolutely stunning place. Then once again, we have Ram Island and Ram Island Ledge Light Station. That right there is Ram Island Ledge Light Station. Again, stunning, especially to see it from a view up top. That's really cool. So that island must be completely uninhabited. And then of course, this is all the coastline right here. Yeah, and then right over here, I don't think you can see too much. Oh, yeah, you can. Check this out right over here. You can see one of the neighbors' homes, some other homes way over there on that island. Yeah, it's a stunning place. Now, one thing I do want to briefly mention, as you can probably make out down there, they are doing some work on the road. Actually looks like they're tearing down some, old trees right there. So I do have a couple spots down there I want to check out, but if they are doing construction work, I don't want to impede on what they're doing. So I just want to say there's a chance, even though there is stuff down there, I might not be able to get to it. I just don't want to impede on their maintenance work, but I did just want to point that out. But yeah, guys, pretty cool. Yet again, another abandoned fire tower. Super dope. And I think this is the second one. So yeah, let's head out and see what else is left. All right, guys, so really quickly, we're gonna check out this small little abandoned yellow house right here. Now, there is a red brick house over there, but unfortunately, as I stated, they're doing maintenance work down there, taking down some trees. I didn't really want to impede on that, so I think we're gonna have to skip that and go right here. Now, this, I believe, is actually a Searchlight powerhouse built in 1911. And the Searchlight tower itself should be back here in the woods somewhere, right behind it. That, I believe, was built in 1920. But this is from 1911, and it powered the Searchlight tower. So why don't we step inside and see? I don't think there's gonna be too much in here, but still worth a check nonetheless. You can see some more equipment or machine mounts right here as we step inside. Completely made of concrete, and I do see some wood framing, which is cool. Very rare to see some wood. Oh, look at these doors. These doors are pretty cool. Actually quite gorgeous. And then a lot of birch logs, that's interesting. Yeah, this is the inside of the Searchlight Powerhouse. Very cool. Again, apologies for the machine noises out there. They are doing maintenance work. You can view under here. This seems to be the foundation, you know, the cellar. Super cool, wow. Not too much in here again, but yeah, this was the powerhouse that powered the Searchlight Tower, which that's what I'm gonna try to see next if we can find that. This right here is the Searchlight Tower, built in 1920. As you can hear, they are doing work down there, so because it is too loud, I'm not gonna spend too much time here speaking, but I did just wanna show you really quick. This is the Searchlight Tower, and the Searchlight Powerhouse is right down there. So that powerhouse powered this Searchlight, which, as the name suggests, it was a massive light, most likely, used to light up the area. But pretty cool to see. Surprised that it's mostly wooden. All right, guys, we've reached the very tip of Cushing Island right now. We're actually on a spot known as Whitehead, and from what the Cushing Island locals were telling me, Whitehead is actually the highest point on the island. So right now we are on the very highest point of Cushing Island, which is pretty cool. Hopefully should be able to get some good views here. Now I actually have two World War II era structures to check out. Both were actually built in 1943. So this structure right here is the Gun Group Command Post, built in 1943. And then right over here is actually the Radar Operations Building. I think we'll check out this first because this seems kind of small, and I think it's mostly just ruins. I don't really know what's actually left behind here, but I figured we could check out this Radar Operations Building first, and then we'll check out the Gun Group Command Post. But again, both were built in 1943 during World War II. So it's kind of interesting. We started off the day checking out a lot of Endicott Period structures, but we've sort of ended off the day with a lot of World War II structures and some World War I era structures as well. So it is kind of like we went chronologically in time. All right, it is very dense over here. Look at all this foliage. I don't think I'm gonna make my way in there, to be honest, but it does look like mostly just ruins of cinder block. There's a lot of brick and cinder block over there. But yeah, this was the Radar Operations Building, built in 1943. I did just wanna show you guys that nonetheless, still pretty cool. But due to the dense foliage, I don't know if we should go in. But I do want to check out this Gun Group Command Post right here, which is actually labeled on Google Maps as the Watchtower. So I guess depending on what you want to call it, the Gun Group Command Post is the official terminology, but it is also something of a watchtower. So let's check it out. Let's head inside and see what's going on in here. All right, let's take a peek. I assume this is going to be quite similar to the fire control towers we've seen, just at a much smaller and shorter scale. Yeah, so far, quite similar. Completely made of concrete. Yet another one of these wooden ladders. In fact, let's head up and see. Yeah, so it only looks like it's one story up. So definitely much shorter, check that out. Only one story. But yeah, we are inside the Gun Group Command Post. Actually, you can kind of get a better view of that radar building right there. The Radar Operations Building. Super cool. Let me show you the views. The views are stellar. Once again, we have Ram Island over there and Ram Island Ledge Light Station. Keep forgetting the name of it. We got that right over there. Some gorgeous Atlantic Ocean views. You can see you got some boats on the water. Could be a lobster boat right over there, not sure. And then we have some more stellar views. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is Peaks Island. Peaks Island is one of the largest islands in the Casco Bay, and one that I've been to a couple times now. Actually, I think 3 times I've actually been to Peaks Island. So that's it right over there. Gorgeous. Yet another mound, and considering the name of this place, yeah, this has to be a gun, so I'm sure they had artillery in here. Yeah, definitely smaller, but this is the watchtower. Again, though, we are on the highest peak of the island, so even though it is small in size, I'm sure it still has quite a bit of elevation compared to the rest. But that was pretty awesome. I think we've actually made pretty good time seeing a lot of these structures. Now, from what I understand, there is one major structure I want to check out last. So we're going to go head to that next. And then I think I'm going to take the ferry back, but super cool so far. I love it. All right, guys, and last but not least, this right here is Fort Levett's power plant, built all the way back in 1905. So once again, we're returning to an early building. Now this power plant powered the entirety of Fort Levett, which is pretty interesting. Although I will say it does seem like it's being used as a storage right now. So I probably won't look around too much because I'm sure a lot of this is active storage, but I do just want to show you guys, this is the Fort Levett Powerhouse, or the power plant, built in 1905. Pretty cool to see. Check this out. Yeah, this must be being used for active storage right now. It's interesting that a lot of the abandoned fort buildings and structures here, like for example, Battery Foote, are being renovated and reused as, well, you know, storage. It's interesting to see. Wow. Yeah, again, a lot of this stuff is active, so I don't want to dig around at it, but the building itself, fascinating. Again, this is the power plant. So this powered the entirety of Fort Levett. And it's crazy to think it was built all the way back in the early 1900s. Again, around the time of the Endicott period. Definitely a little damp in here though, I will say that. Let's peek in here really quickly. Some windows right there. Some nice brickwork, check that out. Yeah, I think that's really about it. I honestly thought this building was going to be completely empty, like a shell of a building. So I am quite shocked to see that it's, well, I guess somewhat still in use. You could argue this building itself is not entirely abandoned. So that's very interesting. But yeah, this is the power plant, and this marks the end of our Fort Levett journey. We've now seen, well, for the most part, every building left behind that was once part of Fort Levett, with a few exceptions. There were a couple I couldn't get to and some ruins. But for the most part, we have seen pretty much everything, and that is absolutely crazy to me. Massive, massive area. So now that we've seen all of the abandoned structures and buildings that were once part of Fort Levett, I just want to end off by stating how this place officially closed down and became abandoned like it is today. As I mentioned earlier in the introduction, if you remember, shortly after World War II ended, all of the artillery was scrapped, sent away or destroyed or whatever, but it was basically all removed from this fort. And then in 1948, the fort itself was sold and officially abandoned by the US government. Now in 1957, the residents of Cushing Island actually purchased it. So again, this is a privately owned fort, as I've stated before. And ever since then, it's been completely sitting here, derelict, decayed, deteriorating. Although it does seem like some of the residents are putting them to good use. For example, this power plant being used as storage. Very interesting to see. Another thing that I should mention, I do believe I briefly touched upon this earlier. In 1971, I think, the barracks that were once part of Fort Levett actually burned down. So unfortunately, that is why we have not seen the barracks today. They did burn down in the early 1970s. And that also makes me think that I'm sure other buildings were probably burned down or destroyed or collapsed. So again, we haven't seen everything that there is, but we've seen a good amount. I think we covered a lot of ground today, and yeah, that's Fort Levett. Really cool place. Built in 1898, abandoned in 1948. That is a long, long time of activity through 3 major wars too. The Spanish-American War, World War I, and World War II. But yeah, guys, that's about it for me. That's about it here at Cushing Island. And now I have a ferry to catch. So I'll meet you guys over there. I got to go catch my ferry and get back to Portland, Maine. Well, downtown Portland, that is. All right, let's go. Thank you guys for joining me. I've been J Mass as always, and this has been another dope New England adventure. And we are officially back here in downtown Portland. I'm finally back in my car again. And man, what a long day today. 7 straight hours on that island. You can really tell too, because I'm super sunburnt right now. I mean, look at that. 7 straight hours in the sun. But absolutely incredible experience. I loved it. Definitely one of the best abandoned forts I've ever explored and covered on the channel. I've been to many abandoned forts, but this honestly has to be one of the best ones I've seen. It was pristine, completely untouched, but I absolutely loved it. And I just want to extend a couple thanks to the people who made this exploration possible. Thank you so much to Julian Malcolm for getting me this invite to begin with. Truly appreciate that, man. Means a lot to me. Thank you so much to our contact on Cushing Island, who actually gave us permission to come and explore Fort Levett. Really means a lot to me, and if you're watching this, thank you so much. And of course, thank you so much to all of the very friendly residents of Cushing Island. I was able to meet many people who actually live on Cushing Island seasonally, and they were great. The hospitality there was incredible. In fact, I was even invited into the home of one of the families that lives there because they were just so nice and friendly. So thank you so much to everyone who lives on Cushing Island. You made my experience so much better than it already was. But I can't believe it. We checked out Fort Levett on Cushing Island in the middle of the Casco Bay here in Portland, Maine. Phenomenal, incredible experience. One of the highlights of the JMass YouTube channel. So I absolutely loved it. But thank you guys once again for joining me. If you love urban exploration, checking out abandoned sites, traveling New England and beyond, I'm always doing that on the channel. So feel free to subscribe to the channel. Want to give a major shout out to all my channel members right here. You guys are awesome. And I'd love it if you too, viewer, became a member of the channel. You'd be supporting me and the channel directly. And I truly appreciate it. Or you can follow me on Instagram at JMassOfficial. That's at JMassOfficial. But guys, I'm honestly pretty tired, and now I got to drive all the way back to Massachusetts, about an hour and a half away from here. So I'm going to get started right now. But I'll catch you guys in the next one. Hope you enjoyed. And again, thank you so much to everyone who made this possible. Really appreciate it.